Welcome back to Sour SaaS, the podcast where we have real operators who are bringing real insights and showing their battle scars along the way. And at the same time, got a little sour twist to it. We're going to be eating some sour fruit riots. And I'm excited about today's guest. Luckily, he's here in Austin with me. But I don't think I can do a good enough intro for him, so I'm going to let him introduce himself. So go ahead, bro.
What's going on? I'm stoked to be here. My name's Tommy Clark. I'm founder and CEO of Compound Content Studio. We are a LinkedIn content agency for B2B tech companies.
Okay. How did you get to that point of doing LinkedIn content?
Oh man, how far back you want to go?
Hey man, we got time.
The short story is I was running in social at another startup prior to this. Actually, in the same building we're in right now, my old company was we had an office down the hall. So I was running social there, and then started to get some freelance clients on the side, and it got to a point where I had enough clients to where it made sense to go off on my own. So decided to leave that job, start the agency, which was really just me as a contractor. And then over the past 3 years, I've built out the team. If you go back even further than that, I thought I was going to be a surgeon at some point, and then I was in pre-med, very different career path at this point, writing content for CEOs. But yeah, short story is running social at a startup. Decided I want to go off on my own, do my own thing, and here we are.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to have you because I think it's really important right now, like founder-led content. Like we've seen it with some of the CEO, like I think CEO of HubSpot started doing founder-led content, and like a lot of these CEOs, Adam Robinson's the perfect example of a CEO doing founder-led content the perfect way. And so I think you're...
Fun story about Adam. I actually, in this building, convinced him to start posting on LinkedIn.
It was in this building?
It was in this building. I had that conversation with him after work one day. My CMO at the time brought him in. They were talking about marketing for retention.com, which was the company he had at the time.
Yeah.
And he was asking me about content, and I actually convinced him to start posting on LinkedIn.
Oh, snap. So you're like the battery behind the Adam Robinson we know?
Yeah, I mean, now he's doing his own thing. He's crushing it. But yeah, it's been cool to see him grow from pretty much zero 2-3 years ago to now. I think he has like 140,000 followers.
Yeah, he's grown like crazy, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for this episode now. These right here are extremely sour.
Okay.
They might hurt a little bit, but it's okay. That's the point of this entire podcast is for you to show both the battle scars and pains of doing founder-led content while also being in actual physical pain.
I love it.
So we're going to rip these open, bro. I'm going to let you go ahead and pick. Usually do like 1 to 2 per question. So let's see where you start off at. Don't embarrass me. Uh-oh. Dang, this is terrible. I can't get it open, bro. There we go.
There you go.
All right. So I'm going to kick it off with the first question. So
Terrifying.
yeah, it should be. It's just a little terrifying. So you've said you can't delegate, like founders can delegate but not abdicate when it comes to content. So most founders I talk to want the magic pill. They want to hand off content completely and never think about it again. But for you, could you walk me through why that mindset fails and what delegate but not abdicate actually looks like in practice?
Yeah, so it's kind of sour. Yeah. As far as delegating but not abdicating, a lot of founders who don't think of themselves as content creators want to just hire an agency or a ghostwriter, or at this point use like ChatGPT or Claude to do the entire content creation process for them. And you can build systems around content creation, but the thing is, if you're completely removing yourself, you're going to likely remove the aspects of that content that make it unique and engaging. So especially now with AI, the main way you stand out on the timeline is through your own personal stories and your own real opinions. And if you're not involved in that content creation process, those opinions, those stories, those things that make the content uniquely you aren't going to make it into the final product. Now, that's not to say that you should be spending 5, 10, 15 hours a week on your content. Some CEOs might do that, especially if LinkedIn or whatever content channel you're on is the main driver of your business. Then sure, it might make sense to spend all that time. But for a lot of CEOs, they don't want to be spending 15, 20 hours a week on content. It doesn't make sense. There's other things in the business that are just higher priority, higher leverage. So you want to have systems around it that make content production more scalable, but you need to remain involved enough that your actual thoughts and opinions and stories are the ones making it into the content, and it's not just generic content that Claude could write with the right prompt.
Okay. So, I mean, you brought up something interesting about time. And so the CEO's pretty much mainly responsible for bringing in more money for the company. And it sounds like doing founder-led content is one of those things that bring in more money for the company. So why do you think that CEOs are not fully seeing founder-led content as this big revenue generator? And then second part of that question, what is kind of the minimal viable time that a CEO probably needs to spend on content to kind of see some results from it?
Yeah, honestly, that second question first, because it's a lot simpler. I would say 2-3 hours a week minimum. Whether you're doing your own content or you're working with an agency, I always tell anyone who's considering working with Compound, even if you work with us, you're going to spend 2 to 3 hours a week on average on your content. If you're writing it yourself, probably a little bit higher, closer to 5 to 10 hours a week, depending on how much time you want to put into it. But at a very minimum, 2 to 3 hours a week. If you're trying to spend less than that, you're just not going to end up with output that's going to result in meaningful growth. As far as why CEOs are still hesitant to post on LinkedIn or just content in general, I don't think it's a lack of understanding at this point. I think at this point, going into 2026, people understand how effective content is. I think it has more to do with their own nerves around building an audience online. And they get nervous about what other people are going to think. And even these CEOs who have raised millions of dollars or who have built their companies to $5-10 million in ARR and lead these big teams, they're still scared of what people are going to think about them when they post online. And that I've seen is the biggest barrier that keeps people from posting content.
Got it. So for the ones who like fully hand off their content to the agency and they have zero amount of time commitment in it, what does their content look like? What does their performance on LinkedIn look like? Like what is kind of the apples to oranges of somebody who's fully invested doing 2 to 3 or 10 to 15 hours a week versus somebody who's just like, yo, I'm fully hands off and trusting an agency with this?
I mean, I'm sure you've seen the content on the timeline. You can tell when people aren't actively involved in their process. It's very generic. There's very few actual personal anecdotes or stories. The writing style or tone sounds also very generic and not unique. There's no real voice in the writing.
Yeah.
So it just blends in. And oftentimes you either notice it because it's so bad, or you just don't notice it at all because it doesn't stand out. You just keep scrolling. So that's usually how that manifests. And as far as what that looks like in terms of results, just it stays flat. And this is how people end up saying that they tested LinkedIn for 3, 4, 5 months, but it didn't work for me. It's like, no, it didn't work for you because you didn't actually put the time in to learn what works and actually develop your own style.
Okay. I don't know if I have this question later, but I'm gonna ask it now.
Yeah.
For you, just from the many CEOs and founders that you've worked with doing content, what's kind of like a timeline to some of the early signals or results of success from like doing founder-led content?
I always tell founders that you should go into founder-led content expecting to spend 12 or willing to spend 12 months on it without seeing any ROI. Now, does that happen? No, you'll see results before then. But if you go into it thinking that you need to see ROI within 2 weeks or a month, you're not going to give the content enough time to really let it work. That said, I understand that we have to operate in reality and you have to make money, and you can't just pour money and time into a marketing channel that is not driving meaningful results. And the good thing is, especially now with all the resources that are out there on like how to do founder-led content, it's like by the end of this podcast episode, hopefully, if not, like there's a bunch of other stuff on LinkedIn, YouTube. It's not a mystery how to do this stuff well. So as long as you have a real strategy around it, you can see signs of life as soon as a couple weeks in. Right. I have clients where we start and within the first week, they'll start getting leads. Or what usually happens in the early days is you already have some connections you built up over the years in your career, even if you haven't been posting content, just people you know. When you start posting, those people that are already in your network will start to see your content. And there might be a few people in there that could end up being leads, or people that are leads right now that have gone cold that see your content and sort of become warm again. So you can see results pretty early. I would say it usually takes about 3 months or so to really start to see consistent inbound coming from LinkedIn because you've been posting consistently. And then by 6 months, 12 months in, you're off to the races. So you can see signs of life early. You shouldn't have to wait months and months and months on end for it to work really well. But you should go into it with the mindset of, hey, this is going to be something I'm doing for the long term, not something I'm expecting to see these amazing results 2 weeks in.
Okay. Well, we're going to go to the second question.
All right.
Let's take 2 this time.
Oh, two.
Yeah. You seem to be handling these really well.
The first one wasn't that bad.
No reaction. I'm gonna have to
You
really.
got a little something there.
I'm gonna have to really get some I don't know.
We're going like 5.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to douse these in citric acid or something, bro.
Do people usually like start tripping out by now?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Well, my last guest, Sam Keenley, he had no reaction. Like he was just eating these like.
Okay. Like they're good.
They are good.
Yeah.
I can't handle these. That's why I'm not eating them. I'm not trying to burn my tongue right now. But yeah, so LinkedIn content is noisier than ever. AI slop is everywhere, and everyone's fighting for attention. But I think you've cracked the code on what actually works. So would you walk me through your framework for LinkedIn content formats and hooks in 2025? Like what's working right now, and then what's dead?
As far as what's dead and generic, so I think the biggest shift is, and people have talked about this before. This isn't brand new, but it's being exaggerated with AI and with a lot of founders using ghostwriters. It's the shift from how-to content to how-I content. How-to would be more generic, sort of here. Like for example, here's how to grow. Like if we were to title a LinkedIn post, here's how to grow on LinkedIn, versus what would probably do a lot better is here's how I've grown to 40,000 followers on LinkedIn, and like the lessons that I've picked up in this process as I've done it myself. That second variation is a lot more compelling because it comes from real world experience and nobody can copy that. So that I would say is the biggest shift in terms of what's working and what's not. And then as far as the formats that are working right now, it's pretty balanced across the board. I know short form video had a very big moment late last year. LinkedIn was really pushing it. They're still pushing it. I get ads every time I go on LinkedIn talking about how LinkedIn video is the future.
Yeah.
I've yet to see that play out in reality, with the exception of late last year, early this year, where they were really pumping views behind short form video. Now at this point, the media format and the post format that seems to work is pretty balanced. You can do text plus image. You can text only still works. Graphics, carousels. Video is fine. Like I would recommend doing video. It's just not this overpowered thing that they're trying to make it. But you can have success with any format. I think that's an important takeaway too. It doesn't necessarily matter what format you use. You can have success with any format on LinkedIn, whether it's text only, images, carousels, graphics, video if you want. What matters most is the format picking the format that you can be consistent with and you enjoy and you're good at. Like for example, I find myself more of a writer. I can do video. I don't mind it. I do YouTube once a week. I do a few short form videos here and there, but I like writing a lot more. So I'm going to be a lot more consistent with that and put in the time to get good at that versus trying to be a short form video creator.
Got you. So you said something pretty interesting. So when it comes like to the AI side of writing content, do you think there's a place for AI in writing and helping write content, helping create content? And if so, where do you see that place at?
I like using AI at the beginning and end of the process. So for the research process, especially if you don't have time to dive down all these rabbit holes and find the research you need. Of course, there's value in doing research yourself, but if you're putting out 5 LinkedIn posts a week, you're not going to have the time to do that. So you can use AI to supplement that research process. And I also like using AI, not so much for my own content at the end, but when we're working with clients, just to do some minor editing and make sure that the posts make sense. So especially if we're operating in an industry that like I don't have personal experience, and if I'm writing a content piece for a founder in that category, I might use AI just to ask it, hey, are there any logical gaps in this piece of content? Or are there any areas where this post just doesn't make sense? Assuming and I would tell it to assume that it's whatever role that I'm trying to reach. So if we're trying to reach, I don't know, someone in the user research category, I might prompt it to assume the role of a UX researcher, and I'm gonna ask it if there's anything in the content that doesn't make sense, just so we can make sure that by the time the content makes it over to the client, everything is factually correct. There's nothing that would throw them off. As far as the actual drafting goes, that's where I would be very hesitant around using AI. We don't do that at Compound right now. If I was talking to a founder who was considering using AI in their workflow, I would recommend against using it in the drafting process, because that's where you add your voice. That's where your unique stories and points of view come through. So if you're just using Claude to write the content for you, that's not going to be the case. And the one other area where I do like to use AI, and I would recommend it, is repurposing. This is probably the most practical or the most powerful way that you could use AI. Is once you have a piece of content you've already written that you like, you know it does well, you could take that and turn it into a bunch of other content pieces, or ask it to come up with other ideas based on that post, or turn it into a video script, or vice versa, taking a video script, turning it into a LinkedIn post. Using AI to repurpose content that you've already written or created tends to work a lot better than asking it to come up with this amazing post from scratch.
Yeah. Do you think there's a place or a tool out there, or somebody who may have done it well, where they have somehow trained the AI model that kind of very similarly or perfectly has their tone of voice and cadence? Have you found one yet?
I mean, honestly, Claude, especially if you use Claude projects, you can load a bunch of your source material into it. So for example, as we're working with clients, each of our clients will have a Claude project, and we'll take the interview transcripts from our conversations and put them into that Claude project. So if we ever need to edit content or come up with ideas or repurpose content, we could just use that Claude project, and it's trained off of that client's tone of voice, writing style. We'll also upload content that we post for that client that does well. So it has reference of like, okay, here's the type of stuff that the client likes and approves, and it also does well on LinkedIn. I don't think you need to go super crazy with all these tools, and I know people love to make posts about their AI tech stack on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Really all you need is Claude. And I like using GPT for research stuff, but for the content creation aspect, you can get a lot of the way there with just a basic Claude subscription.
Okay. This isn't technically the third question, but I feel like it's right that you get some more
All
of
right.
these. But my question, this is a selfish question, honestly.
Yeah.
I think my CEO, Garrett, would appreciate this. What's the anatomy of a perfect hook on LinkedIn?
Okay. I was waiting to see if it hit. It didn't hit. I don't know, man. They taste kind of sweet. I'm not going to lie.
That's crazy.
But as far as the hook goes, I like to frame it as there's a set number of different hook levers that you could use in those first 1 to 3 sentences. So the hook, for anyone who doesn't know, is those first 1 to 3 sentences before you hit that see more button on LinkedIn. Of course, that's going to be the most important part of your content piece. If you don't get that right, the rest of the post doesn't matter. I've seen a lot of content that gets buried underneath a bad hook. When I'm thinking about how to make the hook as effective as possible, I'm always trying to include anywhere from 2 to 4 hook levers in each hook. So these would be things like negativity bias, using specific numbers and metrics in your hooks, trend jacking, so taking advantage of a trending news story. Like for example, when the Barbie movie first came out, I was like last year or 2 years ago, they went on this crazy partnership campaign, and everyone on LinkedIn was posting about it. But it worked really well for everyone because everyone was talking about it. So by using something like that in the hook, you can sort of tap into what people already care about. Similarly, credibility jacking, which is kind of similar to trend jacking, but is more evergreen, just taking a popular name or company and using that in the hook. So for example, if I was talking about, here's Alex Hormozi's LinkedIn strategy. People don't care about me yet, but they do care about and know Alex Hormozi, so they might stop and read my content. Something as simple as just making a list. So saying that, hey, here are 5 tips or 5 lessons. That inclusion of a list sort of creates an open loop that keeps people wanting to scroll. And there's a few others too, but the point is you want to include multiple of these hook levers. A lot of okay hooks will just have one. So they'll just do a list, or they'll just do a narrative hook is another one. It's like using a story in a hook, or they'll just use negativity bias. The best hooks, and what I tell my team all the time, is you want to use at least 2 and really up to 4 or 5 hook levers. The more levers you can cram into that hook without making it like jumbled together, but the more levers you can get into that hook, the more powerful it's going to be.
Okay. So kind of staying on the whole content creation aspect of it. So I've peeped on LinkedIn that you like to read a lot of fiction books.
Mm-hmm.
is that helping with your content creation, and where you drawing other inspiration from to like always stay fresh with? Because bro, writing LinkedIn content, creating content all day, like
Yeah.
that can be creatively draining. So how are you staying like replenished and refreshed creatively?
I think the key is to not spend too much time on LinkedIn, which is sort of counterintuitive because early on you do want to spend a lot of time on there because you get to know what works and see what formats are working, what people are talking about. But if all you're consuming is LinkedIn content and all you're consuming is LinkedIn content from a very specific category, you're going to end up just saying the same things as everyone else. And you're also going to get bored. Right? LinkedIn is not like Instagram or TikTok in that you can just keep scrolling and scrolling. That's one of the things I like about LinkedIn is it's very hard to doom scroll. I would not want to be a social media manager on Instagram because I just spend all day on there. But with that said, it makes finding content inspiration a bit difficult because there's just not that much great content.
Yeah.
So one thing I like to do, as you mentioned, is I like to read a lot. I get a lot of inspiration from there. That usually manifests in terms of the actual writing style, so adding personality to my writing. I'll also use like examples and like sort of tie those into posts that I'm making just to make it more personal to me.
Yeah.
For you, it doesn't have to be reading. It could be any other personal interests or any other category that you find inspiration in. I think the key is to find inspiration in categories outside of B2B marketing LinkedIn and bring those into the content that you're creating.
Okay. So you said something interesting. You said a lot of interesting things, but this one's really selfish because I'm video marketing manager for Directive, so I have to so I'm doing videos on LinkedIn, and I have good days, and then I have days where I'm like I'm getting fired. So when you say like it's probably good to not spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, I want to kind of look at it from the engagement side.
Yeah.
What does it look like for Tommy Clark when you post a LinkedIn video or any type of LinkedIn content? How long are you staying on and commenting and engaging with other people? Is there a set number of people like y'all need to engage with 10 people a day, or like is there a formula for you, or what have you seen worked as far as like staying on and engaging?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have one of those crazy engagement workflows that you'll see people post about this all the time. Here's the exact like engagement workflow to copy to get all these leads. All I do is I post my content. I'll check my profile visitors. So on LinkedIn, you can see who visits your profile. I'll scan through that for the past day, see if there's anyone that fits my ICP that viewed my profile. If there is, I'll send them a connection request if I'm not connected to them already. And then I'll scroll for a little bit, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and see if any content catches my attention. I find it really hard to leave comments on posts that I just don't care about. People will tell you, oh, leave comments and go create like a spreadsheet with all these people that you want to engage with. But if I don't actually find the content interesting, I don't know, I just feel weird posting comments on it when I don't really care. So I'll scroll for a little bit, see what catches my attention. If there's stuff that genuinely catches my attention and I want to leave a comment, I will. Sometimes I'll leave 5 comments, sometimes 10, sometimes none. I think as someone starting out, it is helpful to have those guardrails. So if you tell yourself, I'm going to leave 5 thoughtful comments per day, you really shouldn't be spending more than 10, 20 minutes on this. Do not be one of those people that is on LinkedIn for 3-4 hours a day, just like scrolling, engaging with people. That gets you to the point of diminishing returns very quickly. I would put most of your time, and this goes counter to a lot of the advice you'll hear. I put a lot of your time into getting good at writing the content itself. Like make sure your content is good, and then use whatever time you have left to leave some comments, send some connection requests. I would recommend sending 20 connection requests per day. That's like the upper limit that you can send on LinkedIn right now. And that really should only take you 10 minutes max. You shouldn't be spending a lot of time there. So just to kind of wrap that up nice and neat, I post my content, look at profile visitors, spend a few minutes commenting, can be anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes on the long side. And then from there, I'd log off and go about the rest of my work. You do not need to spend the entire day on LinkedIn to make this channel work.
I think you've freed a lot of people from like, I call it LinkedIn
Yeah, bro. Like
prison.
you see a lot of these like personal brand gurus start talking about how they spend all this time commenting and these crazy intricate strategies. If you put most of your time into actually doing cool stuff in your day-to-day as a founder or CEO, and then the next biggest chunk of time into turning that into compelling content, and then filling in whatever time you have left with engagement and comments, you'll be fine.
Okay. Bro, Because you have what, 43,000 followers on LinkedIn?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. How can you help somebody read through the LinkedIn guru like BS and the fluff that's out there? Like some of these people have a lot of followers and like some of it feels corny and cheesy. Like
If they have a neon bright color background in their profile picture, they're probably a personal brand guru that you should consider not listening to. I'm half joking. I'm sorry if anyone's watching this and that's the case. I'm not talking to you. Don't worry.
y'all love it.
But just read the content. A lot of times, if they're trying to overcomplicate things, they're trying to sell you these fancy systems. You see this a lot with the people, this is outside of the personal brand space, but the people who pitch these crazy N8N workflows and like there's these crazy flow charts and diagrams, all these steps and comment N8N for access, I'll send it to you. Stuff like that. If you see anything like that that's overly complex, it's probably overly complex for the sake of making it content. A lot of times the people who actually know what they're talking about in the personal branding space, in any category for that matter, talk about the same simple things over and over again. I actually made a post about this morning about the importance of repeating yourself in repetition and content. There's only so much that goes into creating a personal brand that actually works. And when people try to overcomplicate it, they're doing that to sell you things, which, I mean, to be very clear, I want to sell people things too. We have an agency. If people want to work with us, awesome. But I think a lot of people just make things way, way too complicated for no reason.
Okay. So, repetition. Because I think for me, like the hard part for me creating content is I feel like I got to be like Drake and always create like a new hit.
Yeah. No, you don't have to. You can say the same thing over and over and over again. Especially if you have something that works. If you have an angle, if you have a specific story, a specific hook format, a specific image format that you find works, just run that into the ground until it stops working. A lot of times people don't realize it takes a lot of work to get to a post that ends up working. And not every post is going to go viral or niche viral or even just like perform okay. Once you find something that does overperform, that's a sign to do more of that. And you can save yourself a lot of stress by just allowing yourself to lean into what's already working instead of trying to come up with something new every single day. Like what I'll do, and I've done this quite a bit over the past quarter, especially because I've been busy with like recruiting and other things within the agency that have taken my time away from my own content.
Of course.
I'll go back 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and just find a post that did well, copy and paste it, post it today. No one notices. And oftentimes it'll do just as well, if not better. So you can do stuff like that without having to worry about people realizing that you're repeating yourself. No one cares. They're not watching that closely. 2, if you have evidence that it works, it's gonna work again. And the life cycle for content is so short on social that it's kind of silly not to use what's already working.
Okay. Well, last question before the lightning round.
Cool.
So, I want to talk about some battle scars. If you're willing to be transparent.
Oh yeah, there's plenty.
Yeah. If you're willing to be transparent and open, you could either do one or you could do top 3 of like the biggest mistakes that you've made personally while on this journey of figuring out how to execute on LinkedIn content.
LinkedIn content, okay. Damn, my mind went immediately to like agency stuff because there's a lot more battle scars over there than on like the content side. I think on the content side, it's just a classic like when you first start posting, you're just not gonna be very good. I don't think a lot of people understand how many reps it takes to get pretty good at writing and creating content. I started creating content when I was in the health and fitness space, like way before I was even in marketing back in 2018. I've recorded 200 podcast episodes for a show that like doesn't exist anymore, like, or never got any traction. I've done hours and hours of YouTube content, and there's still a lot more that I can improve on. But when I first started, it was so bad. Looking back, I'll watch back some of my videos sometimes, and I just like laugh, or read some of the stuff I wrote before, and it's so atrocious. So when people are getting started, they're comparing themselves to the people who are winning right now. It's going to take you time to get to a place where you're good. I'm feeling this right now. It's too total different side tangent, but I'm writing a book that's not related to marketing. It's in fiction. As I've gone through that process, I'm going through that same thing again where I'm like, damn, I know this isn't good,
Of course.
but it's just going to take me time to get to a point where I'm any good. So that's like the biggest thing when it comes to content itself. I think other than that, it's just, you just got to get the reps in. I know that's like very common personal brand guru advice, but that's one of the things where it's like, they kind of got a point.
Yeah.
And a lot of it just comes down to putting the reps in over a long enough period of time.
Well, let's talk battle scars on the agency side, because I think how I'm going to formulate the question now is that, dude, you're leading content writers. You're leading like content strategists to build LinkedIn content. I think you've done like, what was it, 250 plus interviews for like content people, like content writers?
Oh man, probably.
Yeah, probably something
like
crazy like that.
Yeah.
So then what are you looking for that most people miss? Like, let's say you kind of function as a VP of content. Let's say you're functioning kind of like that. Like, what are you looking for in content specialists that maybe like people who are trying to lead a content team are missing?
One, and this one's not very unique, but I mean, specific examples. If they can't speak specifically about what they've done or specific strategies, it's just not going to end very well. So that's one of them. I think the other thing that I really look for now is just sort of raw intelligence. I don't really care as much. Obviously, having specific LinkedIn experience is very helpful. Having experience as a writer is very helpful. But what I've found in building out the team and observing people who have been really great fits for the team and others who haven't quite worked out is a lot of times the ones that really do well just have the processing power to learn very quickly, take feedback, not have to be told the same thing a million times. So trying to screen for that as much as you can in the interview process, and maybe take the person who doesn't have as much LinkedIn experience, but they're very clearly on top of their stuff and can learn quickly, would probably end up being a better, or giving you a better outcome than taking the established LinkedIn content writer who just thinks they're better than they are. And you can only really pick that up through doing a lot of reps and interviewing people and even just making hires that don't work out. But I would say for right now, I'm looking more for overall intelligence and then just culture fit. Like, do they want to work hard? I mean, we're an early stage agency, so just being able to screen for people who really want to get after it is going to be important.
Last question on battle scars, because let's actually talk agency. So from a leadership perspective, what is the biggest, like, I guess, mistake or biggest like blow up moment that you've had on the way to building out the agency?
I think there's a couple. Early on, this is less around leadership stuff, but somewhat related, because I just waited way too long to hire in the first place. After I left my job and I was freelancing, I got to a point where my client roster was full, which is a great problem to have, but I just kept adding clients without hiring people so that I can handle it, and no one can do this as well as I can, so I should just do it myself. That was not smart, and I got to a point where I was managing, I think, 10, 11 accounts on my own. I had a contractor that was helping me with more operations related stuff, but I was the one doing all the content.
Yeah.
So I was managing 10 plus clients like solo, and ended up at a point where I was very, very burnt out, and I should have hired months in advance. I had the revenue to support it. The math made sense. I was just scared that I would mess it up, which inevitably I did make hires where I messed up, but you got to learn, and you got to get through those before you understand what a good hire looks like. And I think the second one, which you kind of go through this from time to time, I don't think I've completely solved this, but it's finding the balance between being involved enough in like the day-to-day execution of the content across clients to where the team understands what our standard is, but not so hands-on that you don't allow people to learn and learn from their own mistakes. And that's a really hard one, because when you see a mistake happen, it's like, damn, like if I was on this account, this wouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. You feel this urge to hop in and just solve it. But if you do that, you rob them the opportunity of learning themselves, and you are then unable to actually build out a company that functions beyond you. That's a tough one. I mean, I still deal with that, where I'm like, damn, like, what's that balance between being involved enough to make sure they understand what the standard is and make sure that we keep our quality bar high, but giving them enough room to learn from themselves and really develop So that's definitely one that's relevant.
Well, Tommy, congratulations. You've made it to the lightning round.
Okay.
So I just got 5 questions for you. You're going to answer them in like 30 seconds, but
All
this
right.
bag is yours now. You take it.
Oh, I'm
You take it
taking
back. Yeah. Every question I ask, you got to like just eat more.
Oh, no. All right.
So let's kick it off with the first question.
Mm-hmm.
30-second answers. So number 1, best LinkedIn content format right now for B2B founders. Is it carousel, text, video, or something else?
Text plus image.
Text plus image?
Yeah.
Why is that?
It consistently does very well, and it's pretty scalable because you don't need any extra graphic design resources or video editing resources. A lot of times I see the best content is going to be text plus image, and it's pretty easy to just have someone in your office just taking a bunch of pictures for you, and that turns into the images you can use for that content.
Okay. Next one. Second question. One content trend on LinkedIn that needs to die immediately.
People complaining about AI content. Talking about M dashes and it's not X, it's Y, and all this stuff. I was like, oh, here's how to tell that your content was AI generated. That's almost as annoying as people using AI themselves to write content. Also, related, people complaining about the LinkedIn algorithm. Most of the time, it's just a skill issue. And even if the algorithm has updated or if impressions have gone down, you'll still figure it out. It's okay. LinkedIn is still a fantastic channel. There's plenty of problems with it, but complaining about the algorithm is a waste of time unless you're doing it intentionally because you know it's going to do well in the algorithm. So if you're doing that, I see you, I understand it, but yeah, I think just overall complaining is like a trend that should not be a thing.
Okay. All right, Tommy. Pop some more. Question number 3, best tool in your content stack right now besides Bluecast?
Claude.
Claude?
Yeah.
Why Claude specifically? Over the other ones like Perplexity, ChatGPT, why Claude?
I find that it captures tone of voice and writing style most effectively. I mean, relative to like ChatGPT or other LLMs. Perplexity's fine. I actually don't use it a ton for research. I find myself using ChatGPT more for finding stats or research. If you ask people across my team, that answer might differ, but just personally, I haven't found myself using Perplexity a ton.
Okay. I just got on the Perplexity wave.
Sick.
Yeah, I think Marcel, GrowthX, he
Okay.
uses Perplexity, so I was like, I'm going to try it out. Question number 4, you just eating these like nothing. Question number 4, advice for a founder posting their first piece of LinkedIn content tomorrow. What's the one thing they need to get right?
I mean, 1, just post it. Even if it's not good, just post it. But 2, if you're actually trying to like really make it pop, I say go back to the stuff we talked about on the hook levers earlier and make sure you actually implement that and include 2 to 4 of those in the hook of that content piece. And write 3 different variations of the hook before you decide on which one you want to go with.
Okay. Last question. So the hottest take. In 3 years, will founder-led content still be the winning strategy, or are you seeing something else on the rise that might overtake it?
Unless AI takes over the world and we're all just kind of screwed, I think founder-led content will still be the thing. The format and the way it manifests might be different. I think LinkedIn will still be the way that people do it in B2B. But even if there's a different channel, people will still want to learn from and follow people. So I don't think that trend is going anywhere. The exact format and channel that it manifests on might look different, but I don't think founder-led content as a whole is going anywhere.
Okay. Last question. This isn't even a lightning round. This is it just came to me. I think it might be a great question because you basically convince founders to do content for a living. How can a VP of marketing or CMO who they've heard the podcast, they're like, man, I would love for my CEO to do content, but how do I navigate that conversation? How do I kind of convince it or, just pitch the idea of like, hey, you need to do content on LinkedIn?
This one's tough. I think my honest answer is it has to come from the CEO themselves. It's really hard to convince them unless it's sort of like when you're having a conversation with someone who needs to get in better shape or needs to take care of their health. You can tell them all you want and like show them the studies and tell them this and that. They're not actually going to make the change until their situation is so painful to them that they need to make a change and that they decide that, hey, like I'm going to get this in order.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing with founder-led content.
Yeah.
Where the interest has to come from the CEO. If you look at a lot of the founders that are winning with content on LinkedIn, very rarely is it someone who just doesn't like social content that had to be convinced. A lot of the founders that are winning are ones that actually generally enjoy content. They understand the game. They want to be a part of it. Even Adam, who I mentioned earlier, I convinced him, but he was already interested. It wasn't like I had to like pull teeth to get him to start posting on LinkedIn. He was curious and willing to do what it took to win. But it's really hard to convince a CEO to post content if they're not at least somewhat interested. You can find it, or the CEO can find it a little bit uncomfortable to start to put themselves out there. But if they're really against it or see it as a waste of time, it's hard to overcome that. And really at this point, when I'm qualifying prospects for Compound, if I get the sense that I'm talking to that type of CEO, I don't even want to work with them. I just know it's not going to work well.
Yeah.
And that's how you end up in a situation, going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, of them wanting to just completely abdicate it. And they want the results and the output of a strong personal brand without putting in the effort that's required to get there.
Well, Tommy, how can they find you?
And this really shouldn't be a surprise, but on LinkedIn, I'm posting on there every day. I also have a newsletter called Social Files. It's just readsocialfiles.com, where I take a lot of the stuff I talk about on LinkedIn and just expand on it in a longer form, written format. So I send that out about once a week. Between that, my LinkedIn, and then also on YouTube, you could find everything you could possibly need to learn how to build a personal brand on LinkedIn.
Well, Tommy, I appreciate you being on Sour SaaS, bro.
Yes, sir. It's a great time.
Of course. Well, that's it for this episode of Sour SaaS. Tommy showed you where to find them at, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Sour SaaS.